Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another mod stream. Today, we're going to be doing some graphics work for HYDRA. But first, we're also going to be doing some stuff that I didn't have time to do earlier today, or I didn't make time to do earlier today, and it is just me getting some work done on some stream-oriented shit. Alright, so what I'm going to do, right, is we are going to take a screenshot here. Well, don't know why we have that stuff going on, but trying to get an approximation here. Okay. All right, hold on. I'm not really sure why it would be like that, though. Huh. Well, I've got no idea then. I'm really confused as to why there's What the fuck? All right, maybe now I invert the mask. No, that didn't help either. Dude, what? I'm trying to figure out, like, basically what I need to do in OBS is I need to apply an image mask to the desktop so that it masks out. I guess I could apply that to the webcam as well instead. Oh. No, that is the same thing though, so. Well, I've got no idea. Anyway, the main reason why I wanted to do something like that anyway was so that I could increase the size here without worrying. So I could zoom in, basically. I'm not really sure why that image mask thing wouldn't work, though. Like, my thought was that I'll add a mask to the desktop, right? And then when I do that, it'll block out the a webcam circle-sized area that I can then fill. But it did that in a really weird way, so... What happens if it's just blank with a mask? And then I set it to this alpha thing. What the fuck? Oh. Okay, I think it worked this time. But I don't know for sure. Hold on. Oh, I see what happened. I think. Oh, see ya. Okay, so it can't be a mask, basically. That's where I screwed up. All right. Now I just don't understand why there's like random black bars associated with it. What the fuck? I don't even know what I just did. Is that on the... No, I think that's actually part of the issue, or whatever the... Yeah, it's just an... Somehow that's just an issue with the main monitor's mask, somehow? What the fuck? I'm sure we'll get this eventually, but it's really confusing. I just don't quite understand how there's like excess color data when it's literally just a circle. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Oh. Now that's a prank. But hey, that actually looks like it's working properly, so let me just invert that. One sec. I'm sure you guys are really enjoying this. Okay, now we've got something going on here. Perfect. Okay. Upshot is now I get to do this. That's what I had to do so that I could sit pretty over here. I'll take it. We figured it out, boys. Now, of course, the only problem is that if I ever... Well, basically, if I ever wanted to go to my recording area, like, I would basically need to make a new monitor capture. Call it main monitor. Well, I guess I could rename this one to be main monitor cam, and then delete that, and then do... So there you go. Now we have a system. Now we're zoomed in, okay? I will probably at some point just get rid of the ring, or... Wonder if I can put like an opacity filter on it or something. What the fuck? I like how there's only a part of it is showing now. Oh, I know why. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's try... I'm not sure. That doesn't really look that great either. So... I'll figure something else out that looks a little bit better than that, but for now, this is what we got. So. Oh yeah, so we got some pretty exciting stuff. I still haven't tested one of iquare's changes from earlier in the day, but I have tested Lazarus Agent. So units are able to respawn if affected. We don't have any reads for it yet, but that will be coming soon. Go ahead and build the latest version of the plugin, and then otherwise I just wanted to check this out. Oh fuck! An AI Arbiter is here! Now, one thing I am a little concerned about is I don't think they will move to, yeah, they no longer, oh no, they do, after enough time. It looks like. Cool. So that's been fixed. All right, I'll test and demo Lazarus Agent now. I guess that bypasses the spellcast animation. Seems like something got fucked up over there, unless wasn't keeping track of stuff. Destroyed. Well, yeah, it seems to be working, so that's pretty cool. One thing that I just thought of is yeah, it's whatever it's like default energy there. Dude, I already deleted all of these videos. I mean, emails. I don't know why they keep coming back. Okay. Now that that's sort of taken care of, just gonna jump in here and oh yeah, I should ask iquare. All right, yeah, all the rest of them are gonna be ground, I guess. Well, besides the Othsteleth. Alcagilus, Cascathalor, Basilisk. I guess we'll do the we can do the Alcagilus next. That'll be an interesting challenge. I won't have to worry too much about like normally when I'm trying to conceptualize how I want to map out the path to some of this stuff. It's like good luck. Normally, I'm just like I'm mostly messing around with. I show the whole unit relatively quickly, like with the Nathricor. It was pretty easy to do that, but with something like the Alcagilisk, it's gonna have to be much bigger. So, um, we really only need one, I guess. There's not that much variance. So there's a height of 50 above the very bottommost pixel here. So we're going to need to extend the canvas by 55 on either side, I think. Oh, on either side means doing it again. So this is what we're looking at here. Oh yeah, the width is also way off. So I think the width for this was 96 or something like that. Yeah. But the width for this graphic is 130. So first we're going to need to 130 times 7 for 910. So we know this is going to be 910. And then we're going to have to set our grid line to 130. And so 25. Oh, yeah. It's probably some way to move everything at once, but 18. Oh, actually. 22. Whatever, I'll just line it up manually. I'm not actually sure if this is accurate at all, to be honest. $48, $46. Okay. So now I'm just lining them up by setting up the comparing like the base of the egg to where they are. Thankfully, we won't really have to do this for too many things, I don't think. Okay. Now that we've done that, we should be able to fit this monstrosity into a few different positions. That's unnecessary, I think. This should be a relatively simple way of keeping the goop localized. Oh yeah, that's right. We'll have to paint on the goop a little bit more heavily after the fact, but... Oh wait, that should actually be fine. I'm just redoing the movements here. So that the artifacting is a little bit less intense. Well, maybe I shouldn't even bother until later, though. Maybe I'll wait to see it in motion or just manually fix some of the issues. That is a little bit extra work that, well, it's not quite just a little bit, actually. So. Yeah, we gotta make this thing way smaller here. What's up, Flurry Fox? Yeah. Well, it's a detail-oriented job, that's for sure. I'm not a particularly grand artist, but you know, you do what you can with whatever you got and all that. It looks pretty blocky right now because of the amount of amount of times I've edited it, but in motion it probably won't appear that bad, and that's also something that I can edit out as time goes on. I think actually what we'll do here is just gonna line these guys up through some of these visuals. All right, in theory, the height should be fine. Now we've got to shrink even more of this stuff. Okay. Yeah, I think I was probably a little too careful with some of the changes that I made, like in terms of going in and editing this stuff. Like I probably should have been a bit more aggressive with trying to make it smaller, but that was always going to be a potential issue with this graphic, being that it's so enormous. Should still be possible to clean some of this stuff up though. Just connect these two together here. Can probably delete that entirely without worrying too much. And then obviously we can add like details to the graphic itself. So the other thing is, in order to make it line up better with the egg at the beginning, we are going to need to shift some of this stuff to the left and then do like gradually have that transition out. We had to do this with the Irolith earlier, so I'm going to say 10 to the left over here, 7 there, 4 there, 2 there, and that should be fine actually. We'll go 1 more on some of these. Just to have that be the case. Okay, now we need to make this thing even tinier. See, it would be a lot easier for me to do if I had more surface area, like, you know, if I had more of a cocoon or something. But unfortunately, I lack that. So like this is probably something that should be the second level in or something instead of the first. Just because it's got almost nothing going on here. I mean, that being said, we're not restricted to only having 7 frames of an animation. It's more like, because that's the consistent number for all of the others, and anything longer would result in more of a delay. Just to keep things consistent in that regard, like more of a delay before you can use the unit. I think that would, you know, make sense then to handle it a little bit differently. So I'll say like the difference between the current frame 6, right? It's not really that crazy compared to the current frame, like the final frame or whatever. So I think we'll move that over. And then we'll say this has to be 260. And then I think I started getting a bit more extreme with the changes anyway because of the... as I got a little bit closer, right? So now we can continue the squishing. All right. Not sure if that's really enough, but maybe. The fuck? Ah, looks like I moved the wrong one over. All right, so we're gonna pretty much just like move this up. That's its like snout or whatever. Then pull some of this back. We're gonna wipe some of that. Indistinguishable chunks. Tail as old as Todd. All right. Not really sure if that's enough, but I think maybe with enough goop we might be able to make it convincing. What's going on, DF? How's today been for you? Yeah, dude, 144 hertz is what I'm running at too, and it's pretty good. Way better than 60, that's for sure. The fuck? Why is goop not showing up on this layer? No, it's not showing up on any of the layers for some reason. Well, detaching it there doesn't seem to matter. I'm really confused. Oh, I have one pixel selected out of fucking middle of nowhere, no wonder. That was stupid. This definitely made it a lot easier to apply this to various bits and pieces. It's not really the greatest looking in this still environment, but I do believe it will look okay in action, which is obviously what matters. Not sure if I need to go like even more extreme with the first frame there. All right, let's preview it, dude. Doesn't look that bad, I suppose. I don't know why the GRP outline is so insanely large, but... Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's just PyGRP being stupid. Did I name the new units myself? Yes. Almost universally. I don't think there are any that are not named by me. Oh yeah, I think I have to data override the construction. The unit is 48. For Zerg units, I tried to go for something that was a little bit more like... my inspiration was basically... trying to find shit that would be really hard for people to... Oh, classic. I think for one, the facing direction is wrong, which I can fix easily enough. But I also think that apparently I have this aligned incorrectly, or hold on. But yeah, I was trying to get words or names or whatever that would be really hard for humans to pronounce. So that I could, I'm gonna, basically so that it would look almost like the, you know, it's like it's meant to be something unknowable or like something that you're not really meant to understand. All right, so they are being shifted up, but it's not by as much as my initial height projections were. So let's pop that document back open then. That's at least something super easy to fix because all I have to do is move some layers, but... All right, we'll try that. It's really hard for me to like look at that and think about what it actually looks like visually. Like it's not something I can easily look at and say, oh yeah, that's fine. So I don't really know. I can't really look at whether or not I need to make any alterations to the graphic until I see it fluid in motion in game. So I'll only have to hope that I can figure that out from there. I'm completely eyeballing and guessing when it comes to the actual setup here, so we'll have to wait and see. And the process for re-adding this stuff is not the easiest. Yeah, because I think Blizzard was really lazy with their Zerg names. Ultralisk is literally just the word ultra. Muta is just mutation or mutagen or something like that. Hydra is obviously from mythology, many-headed snake, so it's kind of a snake-like unit. Obviously, all of their other names are super boring. Overlord, Drone, Devourer, Lurker, anything that's an action verb is already bad enough. But I don't think my names are that difficult to pronounce. But I wanted it to be unsettling or a little uncanny or just sounding a little bit unnatural, because that was kind of the goal, like a theme to reinforce anyway. When I go in and make my own sort of, if I decide to make a race that's inspired by Zerg or whatever, that'll be a consideration to make. To play up, and make it so that it's more complete. But I generally think Blizzard was pretty stupid with how they handled their stuff. All right, so we're still going a little too high, it looks like. I also noticed we're a little off and to the left. I'm not really sure how that's even possible, but... So besides that... what I decided to go for when it comes to stuff like Lisk is I also came up with Leth as an ending, like if you don't want to call that a suffix. So there's Gorgoleth, Iraleth, Othstaleth, and Alazaleth, but Alazaleth isn't implemented. Calcaleth. So basically I tried to like come up with another suffix and then legitimize it by having it be used for a lot of different ones. So... But I also think that it's really stupid the way the Blizzard actually used the names, like the extensions, the suffixes. I feel like if you were going to have something like Lisk refer to ranged units or something like that, maybe that would make sense because we've got Hydralisk and Mutalisk. But then they have Ultralisk, where it's a melee unit. So I'm not really sure what Lisk is meant to signify. It feels like it was a little haphazard with the way that they threw shit out there. I've taken a look at the naming conventions of a lot of the stuff though, because like if you look at the Protoss naming conventions, you have I think 3 or 4 different themes going on, which makes it really confusing. Like you've got some units that are named after whatever their combat role is supposed to be, like shuttle or scout, stuff like that, where it's like observer, like some of them are even action verb in that sense. And then you've got stuff that's more like a carrier is another example of that one. The utilitarian naming convention. But then you've got some stuff that's a little bit different. That's like religious in some way, which is like zealot and Templar and Archon. Um, and then you've got some shit that's like in between, like Reaver and Arbiter and Corsair and stuff like that, where there seems to be some allusion to something a little bit different. But nonetheless, none of it. It's not like it's they only call their aircraft utilitarian names and their robotic units, historical names, and their Templar units, religious names or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no logic that you can really reverse engineer from the experience of looking at what they've done. You can't really look at that and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." It seems natural. Seems like there was a reason to name them that. Unfortunately, that's just not the situation we inherited. So. Oh yeah, let me also go into the. Oops, that's not what I wanted to open. What's up, Beaver? I do think that generally StarCraft 2's unit names are pretty stupid as well. Like, Immortal is kind of another example for me, because it's just like the laziest thing you could possibly name a unit that's very resilient. Like, I've got a unit that's very resilient in HYDRA, but it's called an Amaranth, which is short. It's like a play on the word amaranthine. I forget exactly how you pronounce it, but if you search up, amaranthine is like an adjective that means okay, hold on, we'll just jump over here. An imaginary undying flower. So basically the idea is that it's a play on amaranthine means immortal or undying. And so I was looking for like ways to play up on the idea that it would be resilient, it would be able to keep itself alive. And like that's how I settled on that. I'm not going to say it's the best name in the fucking world, but it sounds evocative of a real thing if you know what the word means. And even if you don't know what the word means, it still sounds like it has some class to it. And it's not just like hitting you over the head with what a unit is or something. What's up, Loler? Tutelary. I don't know what that even is. Let's look it up. Having the guardianship of a person or thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play around with that. The problem with so many words that work for, like, describing a role or something like that is that a lot of the words do not have a lot of power. Like, if you say the unit, I'm going to build an amaranth, even that's kind of borderline. Like, there's some class to it, there's some grace to the word. But to me, it doesn't scream like a powerful fighter, whereas zealot is like a harsh word. You say it in 2 syllables, you're over and done with. And it's like ends on a harsh letter and stuff like that, Like, that's actually one of the freedoms that I have with the Zerg names, where I can just sort of string together stuff that's satisfactory to say, but also uncanny or unnatural. And I don't have to worry that much about whether or not it makes sense, because as long as this list of syllables is pronounceable, I can have it be somewhat powerful. I can have it be somewhat, I can have it evoke whatever feeling it's meant to evoke, just in a guttural, visceral sense when you say the name. And that's really the freedom that you have afforded to you there. But otherwise, you're stuck figuring out what kind of like existing word makes sense, right? So it's not a luxury you have for a lot of things. Whereas like tutelary, for me, my problem there would be that it doesn't carry that strength in the same way that I have a kind of a problem with amaranth. But at the very least, you have that connection to a real word, just like with tutelary, where there's a connection to a real word that means something and at least implies a link if you know what the word means. but you know, they're both, I guess, kind of obscure references. Like if you don't know what the word means, and it's not a very common word to hear in conversation. You know, it's all you know, considering all things you should consider, right? All contributing factors. Yeah, then it just feels like I forgot a letter. I typoed my name. Whether our word rolls nicely off the tongue is a pretty big factor in the unit names you choose. Yeah, that's sort of like what I was saying. Is I actually think, like, for example, the World Eater Zerg worm unit that I called the Malcothalor. Like that's pretty fucking, you know, has that power. It probably only seems that way to me because I've seen it spelled amaranth for like months now or whatever since I came up with the concept. Hey, I guess it's a good thing I moved those deliverance units over to Hydra because that's just obviously I'm not working on deliverance anymore. That's pretty funny. It lives on. It gave back to Hydra in a way. All right. So I don't remember which graphic I'm using here. All right, so that's 13. Yeah, it's exactly what I was complaining about, DF. Yeah, Loller's working on a melee mod. Well, I assume there's also an intention to have some campaign content eventually, but he's working on some stuff for Starcraft 2. Though I'm sure it will. Oh, we're getting pretty close there. Now at least it's synced up there, and it definitely needs to go down maybe like another 8 pixels or something. But yes, he's working in the dreaded StarCraft 2 engine. Although, like we were talking about the other day, I think you might just be like, fuck it, I'll wait until until the other new engine is taken care of. Which, you know what? Nothing wrong with that. Because I'm also doing that in a way. Oops. I actually just realized that I may have just overcorrected because I typoed it. What the fuck? But I may have just overcorrected because I apparently did not process it. So whatever. I hate the fact that I have to use 2 different programs just to compile a GRP in this whack ass environment. No, I've definitely the main workhorse behind it, but iquare has done a huge amount of programming behind the scenes for a lot of the unit abilities and AI stuff. I wrote the AI scripts, but he did a lot of programming for creating the tools. DF, who's in the chat right now, is responsible for a lot of the art, like every icon that you see that's custom. He also redid all of the existing icons. He's responsible for a couple of wireframes, though the vast majority of them are by Jun 3 Hong, who's a Korean guy. DF has also ported a bunch of graphics, a bunch of like overlay effects and stuff from other games to for use in this environment. And then there's Veek has been a great help with programming some stuff. He's sort of like a jack of all trades. He's helped me reskin some units. He's helped me do some programming. Well, you know, I fast forwarded too fast. Aha. It looks like we want to move to the right a little bit. With the last frame there. I'm not sure about oh yeah, DF's also responsible for a bunch of custom terrain. I haven't worked on custom terrain in a while, so I kind of forgot about that even existing. TBH. So yeah, in short, I've had quite a bit of help. Thankfully, these guys felt strongly enough about the quality of the work that I was doing that they were willing to pitch in and make it even better. So definitely something that's pretty epic. Oh, that's not what I wanted to start up, you goofball. Yeah, these are all ripped from another game. Well, a couple other games. The red recolor is obviously something that's a placeholder right now, but all of the Zerg air units that are custom are from the same game, and we have a Zerg ground unit that's pretty. Unfortunately, it's not all that great to look at, but. I think they definitely it really improves the first time impression when you get like an actual morph animation. So, like obviously they're still playing the Hydralisk morph animation, but I can fix that relatively easily just by playing the Ultralisk one in reverse once we get to the point where we can do that. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like you take for granted how much of an impact it actually has. And yeah, I actually think that in motion it doesn't look that bad. I mean, obviously there's still some issues with the aliasing or whatever, but it's all right. I think we've done that. Oh, I've got to change the facing direction of that unit ID as well, which I believe is 54 on the ID side. Yeah, I think I used 13 by the looks of it. Let's try that out. Yeah, that looks better. Less of a snap going on there. I knew it was going to be tricky to like make sure that they line up correctly. So in a way, I'm kind of glad that I started by doing all of the air unit, the ground unit to air unit morphs animations. Do I have plans? Already do something in the Infested Command Center? Well, what I did do is make it so that the Infested Command Center is more useful. So I think this is still kind of bugged, but it is supposed to spawn larvae. The other thing is, it is supposed to. It doesn't spread creep, but you can return resources to it like a regular command center. And I also made it so that infested Terrans were a little bit cheaper in terms of, I think, gas cost and also time for sure. I know I reduced the time cost for them. Yeah, it looks like they're the same in terms of gas cost. But infested Terrans themselves got reworked. So we have their passive Death March gives them increased health based on, or increased movement speed based on missing health. As you can see, they move quite fast after a certain point. And the other one is that they ensnare on death. So ensnare actually got moved exclusively to infested Terrans now, which is a little bit strange since before it was also on broodlings. But as a result, I think it allows you to basically do a little bit. It's a bit more strategic for counterplay in general because of the fact that you have the opportunity as somebody who's playing against infested Terrans. You can pop the infested Terrans to ensnare any other units that are near them. So like if I'm walking around with infested Terrans and hydras or something, and somebody pops the infested Terran, my hydras will get slowed as well, obviously, right? But the other thing about the passive allowing them to go faster is that the fact that they can close in on targets if they don't get killed immediately means that you almost have to be like, you have to burst them down if you really want to be secure in that. So in general, there's a lot of there's like a little bit more, just another layer to their overall design, I guess. So but yeah, the main thing that I do want to change with infested units, I want queens to be able to infest any production structure. So Nexus, Gateway, Stargate, Robotics Facility. There's 3 new production structures for Protoss as well. There's the Grand Library, the Argosy, and the Robotics Authority. But also Barracks, Starport, Factory, Nanite Assembly, which is a new one for Terrans. And so, like, the idea would be that you'd be able to not just infest the town halls, but also the commands or the production structures, anything that produces units. And then that structure will spawn larvae, maybe spread creep, and also if it's a town hall, you can return resources to it. So Nexus or command center. And I guess it just wouldn't have an effect on Zerg structures because there's not really much of a reason to infest it. I guess maybe you could just give it to the other player or something. But I also wanted to rework how infestation was done entirely because I think it's a little weird that you get the queen and all you have to do is like shove it in there when it's below half health. So instead, I was thinking of creating a different mechanic for that where queens have to channel infestation onto the target, and there would be some sort of visual read, maybe a bar, a progress bar of some sort, like an inverted health bar that increases the more the infestation goes up. And multiple queens channeling infestation on the same target will increase the speed. And maybe it goes up faster if the structure is on less health or something. So the more damaged the structure is, the faster the infestation channels. So you really only need 1 queen in theory, but it's not a requirement. Anyway, I like the idea of the queens having to be vulnerable in order to do it. And then I also like the idea of making it a more useful and ever-present mechanic so that it's not just this one thing. Like, the reason why it hasn't been changed to be that yet is because it's going to take a long time to do that, and we would rather focus on things that are a little bit more pressing because we're going to be moving into developing our own engine after November, like in the month of November. So there's not really much of a reason to like try working on some brand new system like that because it would just require an insane amount of effort. Well, it's not going to get implemented until the new engine, the Infested Templar, because of the fact that we can't do the we can't process everything else. But the other thing too, though, is realistically speaking, you shouldn't really be producing Infested Templar from like robotics facilities and robotics authorities and stargates and stuff. Like, that doesn't really make sense. The problem is that if it like the inner like nerd in me, or the inner fanboy, if he even exists, to the extent that I have an inner fanboy, I would really like to see like massive amounts of infested units, like basically an entire infested subfaction or something, where it's like infested Terran and Protoss mixed with some like mainstay Zerg units or something like that. The problem is that you can't expect to, like, you can't just hand the Zerg race a new race as a sub faction in the middle of their gameplay. Like, it's a little unreasonable to, conceptualize and create an entirely new race of units that's only accessible if you play as one race against another race, if that makes any sense. So like, you can't really justify making like infested siege tanks and infested SCVs and infested reavers. So I just look at it like the sanest, like the most sane manner of approaching that kind of thing would simply be to provide a more opportunities to infest stuff, and then if it's Protoss, you get infested Templar, and if it's Terrans, you get infested Terrans, and that's the extent of it. Maybe it could be one different unit per structure or something, so that infested Natite assemblies could produce battle cruisers or something like that. Like that could be kind of cool too. It could be like one infested unit available in that sense, but it just seems a little odd to like go super heavy duty into that, given if you're supposed to be supporting melee and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I think bearing in mind that infested Terrans are pretty squishy and pretty expensive, and their opportunity cost is so insanely high because you have to infest. Right now, you have to infest one structure, but you have to infest a Terran structure. I think it makes sense for them to have that movement speed thing, because it's like if you're careless around them, you should get punished. Their damage did get lowered to 400 from 500, so it's still a little bit less, but it's not by much. Like they'll still kill a lot of stuff. So. What's up, Renato? Well, I think anything that's dealing 500 damage in a any unit that's dealing that is kind of goofy. Technically, the nuclear missile is a unit, but not really the same kind of thing. TBH. All right, so the Arcadialisk morph is done. I feel like we're not really center here. There we go. So now what do I need to do? Yeah, well, the scale of Hydra's battlefields are such that I don't think that you'd have the... I think if you're able to spend the money and also the APM, like, you're able to even think about and execute that kind of strategy in the scale of Hydra's battlefields, you kind of earned it. Like, Hydra, you're managing like 4 or 5 bases. You're, there's a lot going on because there's no supply limit. So, and there's more resources, generally speaking. So, yeah, I don't think it's as much of an issue in a situation where they were more available and there was no scale increase over vanilla. I could see what you're talking about, because then it's like, oh, well, then I can actually do this. But there's so much different about Hydra compared to the base game, so... Right, yeah. Like, all of my balancing decisions are from the perspective of melee gameplay, or melee-styled gameplay, at least. Where you don't start out with that much, so... I am looking forward to finally having the AI back online with all of the changes that are going to be coming to the next patch. Changelog is fucking insane. Oh yes, I can plug in the I think the Argosy is already in here, but yeah. I think some people have made some smaller scale melee maps, but I'm mostly interested in really large scale fights with like, 3v3 or 4v4. If StarCraft wasn't so limited, I would have already made like way bigger maps than that with like 12 players or 15 players or something crazy, but that's why we have to make the new engine, because StarCraft just can't handle it. Oh, Blizzard is not making it. That is something we're going to start building on the 3rd of November. Well, not exactly the 3rd. At some point after the first week of November, we'll be starting on it. It's probably going to take maybe a year or so to finish, if I had to guess. But we might surprise ourselves. Yeah, Blizzard still has Diablo 1 code rolling around inside Overwatch, so I don't think they're making new engines anytime soon. Yes, for those not looking at Twitch chat through the lens of Restream, you're missing out on Nightbot laughing anytime somebody writes Blizzard. I don't even know if that worked. You can tell me if there's more than one you. There's definitely like a ton of additional changes that I've forgotten about, but well, it's not specifically for StarCraft 1. I've got aspirations to make my own RTS game, but I've been working within the confines of Brood War because it was the best way to get experience designing RTS stuff and like revising all the races and whatnot. It's definitely something where I want to I want to take it to another level at some point, but it's just a matter of handling business. I want HYDRA to be somewhat playable, even if it's not super stable. I'd love for it to be stable as well, but the engine just does not support that kind of thing out of the box. Like Brood War's engine is super limited, and we've had to circumvent a lot of its limitations through really weird solutions. So unfortunately, that seems to be the way it is anyway. But what I will say is I'll commit to getting at least a playable version of the project, like in a single player context, if nothing else, like player versus AI or whatever. But I'm pretty sure I'll be able to handle commit to some sort of multiplayer version within Brood War without needing to wait for the new engine to come in. But that being said, it's just like I can't even make my StarCraft mod in StarCraft's engine, and there's not a single other RTS game that would be worth modding. So the problem is that even if you get an RTS game that's more moddable than StarCraft 1, like I think CNC 1 had its source code released by EA, or it's going to happen at some point or something. Like they've already gone public on the agreement at least. I think they already did do it though. But those games are worse than StarCraft to such a degree that in order to even get the implementation down, like in order to implement new things that you want to do, you need to do all of the research on the engine itself to learn what it's currently capable of. Then you need to actually add your functionality. Then you need to actually like go from there and build additional things like bringing in your changes to any netcode things that you have to do, bringing in your assets, your art assets to make them implemented there, and all this other stuff, to the point where it's not really reasonable to put in all that effort to learn somebody else's engine, regardless of whether or not it's open source. If you can circumvent the risk, you cut out any risk of the engine not working out long term by making your own engine and knowing the source code well enough to be able to say, even if there's some really obvious limitation and we're going to have to rewrite some big functions, at least we'll know what those functions were because we wrote them, and so it won't be that big of a deal. But yeah, so an engine is basically it's like if you imagine you go to the playground and there's a giant sandbox. So within that sandbox are all of the tools that you have to build stuff in the sandbox. So there's like buckets you can build sandcastles with. There's all the props that you can like decorate your sandcastle with. There's like water that you can use to create moats. Whatever you can envision in your head for a sandbox, right? So that's kind of what an engine is. An engine supplies the environment that you're working within when you're developing content. So it's literally every piece of code that's like running at the same time for the program, but it's how you build something, right? So it's how you create content in one way or another. So it would determine pathfinding. It would determine like with the way that visuals are displayed. So it's like the graphics implementation. It's also the net code for networking when you're dealing with multiple players that are connected together. So it's literally everything. That's why it's a challenge. Now, thankfully, we can use like OpenGL, which is an open source graphics library, and we can use stuff like that where it's at least some elements of that have been handled, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel for literally everything. But the idea is that the engine will support multiple games. Like you've probably heard of Unreal Engine or Unity Engine, and those engines can support multiple games. Like you can build multiple different games in them. So the idea is that any RTS or like a isometric bird's eye view game that we want to make, maybe a MOBA or something. I'm not really that interested in it, but as an example of another game that might work like that, or a Diablo 2 type game or something, you know what I mean? Like a Diablo clone that has the similar perspective. Anything like that we want to make would be possible to make within this engine because we would have that flexibility. So that's sort of like what an engine is. It's like you use an engine to make a game, but you can do more than just make one game with it. So I could build a game client for HYDRA or for like a Starcraft mock-up or something, right? And then I could also build a game client for my own RTS, and then I could build a game client for a MOBA or for an RPG. And all that shit would be within the same engine because you're using that engine to do it. Like you might update the engine or something like that, but it's the same basis for whatever it is you were using it for before. So like that's why when I said Blizzard has Diablo 1 code in Overwatch, it's because they've essentially been like adding hacks to their own engines over and over again. Or they even if they go to make a new engine, I think Overwatch technically uses a new engine, they're still copying and pasting code from their original engine from like 93 or something, however old Diablo 1 is. So that's like a case where it doesn't really matter if the engine is that new because it's still running shit like that. Yeah, in theory, what we would want to do for pathfinding is we would want to have we would want to give end users the option to do pretty much whatever you want. And so like even within, say, whatever the new engine's version of HYDRA looks like, where it's like based on Starcraft 1, for pathfinding, you know, that if you wanted to have your own pathfinding system in there, we would want to make the code open source enough that you could just go in and write your own implementation if you didn't like ours, or customize certain things about it or whatever. But yeah, in theory, you could do like something like that. It's just that for the game that we're making, like that could be something that somebody could open up in the editor and they could define whatever their new pathfinding style was, and they could just basically select that for the game's pathfinding for that, you know, scenario or something. It's going to be 2D, and it's not going to automate actions for the player like StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 do. So most people will probably classify it as old school. But the intention is to make something better than StarCraft. StarCraft is the best RTS, but it's only because nobody else gave enough of a damn to try, in my opinion, to try to be better. Or if they did, they just failed for one reason or another. But most people just didn't even try. Like, you look at Armies of Exego is one of the only RTS games I've seen that actually tried to be better, or tried to do something, like, try to at least be good, right? And they borrowed a lot from StarCraft, and you know, even though it was a fantasy game and not a sci-fi game, they had a lot of similar concepts and stuff. But ultimately, they had a lot of very obvious issues that they got rushed out the door by Ubisoft or something, so they couldn't actually finish their game. Oh yeah, I should mark the feedback thing, because I already did that earlier. So let's go ahead and jump into here. Okay. Well, your good pathfinding is such a loaded term. So StarCraft 2's pathfinding is worse than Brood Wars. It takes more control away from you. Brood Wars is more precise. It's just that units themselves are bad at... they don't wait in line, basically. They have some repulsion thing where they... if they can't make it to where they're trying to go, they'll try to find another pathway, and they're not very good at finding the subsequent pathways. Like, if you've got an open map, right? And you've got your Marines and you order them to move, they're going to retain their formation, and that's going to be perfect. That's 100% what you want. You ordered units to move, you want them to move. It's just that when it comes time to actually have a map where there's terrain and obstacles, that's where StarCraft suffers. So it sounds kind of facetious to say that it's fine as long as there's no terrain features, because realistically speaking, that's not the use case. But it's way better than StarCraft 2's on a fundamental level, because there's no internal system that's fucking with the player and doing something that the player didn't order them to do, and automating some decision making from the player. Like, if I want my units to group and clump, I'll do that. I'll manually order them to tighten up. That's because, and that's my responsibility as the player. That's what I should be doing. But maybe I don't want them to clump. So maybe I want to split them and then move them like this, and they should move like that. And that, like, again, that's really what a pathfinding system should do. Is it should allow the player to be the one who's responsible for the actions. StarCraft 2, units just clump together, they push each other around. There's like push priority and flocking is what it's called, where that's what that clumping mechanic I'm talking about. And it results in a smooth pathfinding system, but it also results in units doing something that you didn't tell them to do, and in many cases stuff that you don't want them to do. And it also disproportionately favors any sort of area damage because units are so close together. So for these reasons and many others, you don't want to do something that a lot of the modern pathfinding systems have actually done. Brood Wars pathfinding is probably the best in any RTS, precisely because it doesn't fuck with you that much. Units are dumb, but with enough APM, you can handle that. And obviously, it's going to be kind of frustrating when they do stuff that is really, really dumb. But at least you can always know how to alleviate that. Whereas you have no counterplay to the engine forcing your units to flock together or being pushed out of the way or whatever. Technically, that is not true. They'll move in whatever direction they want. It's just that their graphic only has so many facing angles. So, yeah, there's 16 facing directions in Starcraft. But aside from, well, I guess technically 32 because it's flipped. But aside from that, it's like they're moving irrespective of where they're facing, right? They're moving in various matrices. So I guess maybe the grid size is small enough that might be correct, but that's not because, like, I don't see that being the cause of the issues. Unless you're trying to argue that units should be able to move like up and down above each other in 3D space or something, but I'm not even really sure what you're talking about with that. They only walk in 8 directions. Like north, south, east, west, and diagonal, like the cardinal directions or whatever, is I mean, that's what you would want, right? Like, yeah. So the grid size of matrices or whatever might be responsible for that, but I'm not even really sure that that's the case because the facing angles don't have anything to do with the directions that they're actually moving in. Like I can't zoom in any further than I already am. But if you look at like the unit, right? I can have it stop in between all of these points. There's no like hard grid that it's forcing itself to align to. I mean, there is one. It's very, very small though. It's like a pixel, literally a pixel grid. So it's like 640 pixels by 480 pixels per screen. And that's how many matrices there are in the pathfinding grid. I mean, the thing that people always complain about in Brood War pathfinding is that units can't find their way around objects and themselves very well, which is 100% fair as far as the complaint goes. But I mean, the solution is to make the game actually see buildings and units as pathfinding objects, and then make predictions based on movement speed and and direction, obviously, and then like, well, I don't even know if you would need to make predictions, to be honest with you, but one solution to that problem would be to say, like, if I've ordered 6 dragoons to move up a ramp and only 2 dragoons can fit there at a time, then what I should be able to say to the game, or I should have like the 2 dragoons in front, they don't need to make any calculation differences because they've seen that there's nothing in their way. And maybe they'll recalculate that every few ticks or something. Or maybe it is every tick, I don't know. But it would be like calculating whether or not there's something in between them and their destination, their order destination, that they need to take into account. The 2 dragoons behind them in the middle are going to say, I can't move ahead because these dragoons are in my way, but they're moving in the same direction that I am, and they're allied, so they're not going to stop and attack me. So I should be able to just wait until I can move and then move. And then the units behind the middle and at the very back, the 2 dragoons at the very back, should be able to also say there are 2 dragoons, 2 sets of dragoons that are moving up that ramp, and I should wait in line for my turn. And, you know, at that point, that would be the thing. But if those units are not moving, if there is no movement at all, then those 2 dragoons should say, those dragoons are not moving. I need to find a different ramp to climb up. And that's when they should start spinning and finding another avenue. It's just that in Brood War they don't even so much as find another avenue. They just fucking spin for no reason. And then obviously the other issue is that they well, it's sort of aggravated by this, but the fact that you can't, like, you're not going to be able to navigate around buildings or whatever unless you manually order stuff. That's also pretty annoying because they don't consider buildings things that almost never are moving, and if they are moving, they don't have collision. You know, shit like lifted command centers or whatever. Buildings should really be considered just like terrain are in terms of pathfinding, but they aren't. And that for the same reason, the like AI will never rescue an SCV from behind depots if their worker gets stuck while they're building a depot or something, and it's never going to rescue that SCV, at least not intentionally. It might like pick up the SCV because that SCV was chosen to go build an island expansion or something like that. But aside from doing something like that, they're never going to pick it up. Like they're never going to rescue it because as far as the AI is concerned, there's nothing blocking the SCV because it can't see fucking buildings as path blockers. But that's just like a stupid limitation of Blizzard's code, though. That's not like fundamental to pathfinding itself. You know, that's just Blizzard being dumb. Going to try to make pathfinding smarter while retaining the quality of Brood Wars. Yeah, I mean that's basically it, right? You want pathfinding that doesn't fuck with the player's actions, that provides a nice little like, here's my goal. I want you to go to this location, and like you're not really automating anything meaningful by making it so that the units don't spin and take the stupidest route possible. You know what I mean? Now there's some issues with that you can attenuate some of the issues in Brood War, and I've already done that with Hydra, where Ultralisks and Dragoons and Goliaths have like notoriously bad pathfinding, and it's because they try to move to different they try to move different distances with each animation. And so like in the middle of the people think that it's because their hitbox gets bigger because that's what Day 9 said, but that's not the case. Their hitbox is always the same. It's not even possible to change it on a per frame basis anyway. But what happens with Dragoons is like in the vanilla game, they moved in a kind of like a jerking fashion. Like if you look at the Reaver, you'll notice that it's like it's not moving the same speed. It's not moving the same amount of pixels at every single point in its animation. So it's sort of like crawling along the ground, right? That's part of why this happens. So basically, I can order 2 Reavers to move back to back, right? And if I do that, maybe the first Reaver starts moving at, you know, and the initial animation code is like move 3 matrices, or, you know, move 3 pixels or whatever the move command is. But then it gets to a frame where it's supposed to move 1 pixel instead of 3. And this Reaver is still trying to move 3, but can't because this one only moved 1. And suddenly, this Reaver will say, hey, there's something that blocks me from going 3 pixels forward. I better find another pathway. That's what's happening to Dragoons. Dragoons are moving like 6, 5, 4, or whatever per animation, like different amounts. So what I've done is I've smoothed out their animation so that every single movement is the same amount of pixels traveled. And while it sort of degrades the animation quality because they're moving the same, like it looks a little awkward in motion if you're not used to it, it does stop them from spinning quite a bit. Like it's way smoother to move a group of Dragoons now because they all expect to be moving at the same amount of speed at every single case. And I did the same thing with Ultras and Goliaths and Broodlings. So You don't have the same number of pathfinding issues that you did before. Like that's one of the things that, again, like you wouldn't even have to make that decision. You wouldn't have to change anything about the animations or go into that. Like you wouldn't need to know that bit of trivia if the units just said, there's a unit that's in the middle of moving in front of me, so that pathway will not be blocked for very long. I will wait. You know, if they just did a little bit of predictive things, you know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, long story short, Blizzard's just goofy, and they program something in a stupid way. You're talking about like regions by pathfinding segments? Because I have noticed a ton of really stupid behavior with regions. Oh wait, no, I know what you're talking about. You can actually preview that in you can preview that in here in this debug plugin. So yeah, for example, when they reach this last one, it's slightly shorter than the others, so where when I'm spamming right click, it's always the same duration. So it's pretty goofy. In such a situation like that, there should be a way to dynamically allocate movement through pathways. IMO. I'm not sure what your way to do that would be, but wistful thinking and all that, or wishful thinking rather. Anyway, I gotta use the bathroom now, so BRB. I return, and all right, have a good one, Flurry Fox. Wait, I've been calling him Flurry this whole time. He's probably Fiery Fox. But just so you guys don't think I'm insane, that looks like an L to me, man. Just saying. I mean, he's probably gone anyway, but jeez, man. Ah, you, actually. What does it look like in OBS on stream? I think it looks the same, right? Oh, okay. Hold on, let me full screen preview. Oh yeah, it's way more obvious that it's Fiery Fox on stream, so that looks really bad. Imagine this whole time he's like, why is he calling me Flurry Fox? Well, I feel like I missed a message from you, Oler, but I agree. Oh, I'm not even signed in. Fuck. If I had a link, Anyway, what are we even doing now? I did one thing pretty much, and then blabbed. That was my 2 hours so far. Pretty good stuff. Why? Now that's what I call a file name. I think it may have been used by some Korean mod at some point. I'm going to use it for the Basilisk, I believe. I can't wait to manually save and organize. Oh my fucking god. Can't wait to manually save and organize all of these images. Yeah, no, it's definitely like low effort stuff. The Vorvaling was also pretty bad considering it was just a kit bash, but DF at some point made magic happen with his update for it. I'll see if I can find a graphic for the building as well, since that's also just a recolored Hydralisk thing. $30 to go for this batch. It's going to be 2 1/3 batches, I think. It's like 234, and I'm doing them in batches of 100, so... Even after I'm done with all this, I need to batch process them, but... Yeah, whatever, I'll just do the last batch at the same time. Jesus Christ, dude, just open the files. What's wrong with you? Can't believe how unbearably slow it is for the first couple. Till I free up enough memory and Photoshop starts behaving like a program again. And I'm crazy, I gotta put some more music on. starting to go faster. Slowly gaining speed like some kind of messed up locomotive. Well, this is going to take a while. Guess while I'm waiting for Photoshop to work, I'll timestamp the Fraud Night video off stream, dude. There was another ranged walker type graphic that I might be able to pull out from that game. Not sure though. Still working over here. God damn it. All right, let me take a look at that other ranged walker in that case. I could see that. I mean, it's kind of weird, but honestly, that might actually be the Cascathalor. Fuck the one that I have right now, the Slug. It's not a particularly large graphic here, but I still think it might be okay. Yeah, dude, I'll take that one any day. Let's go. Tower of Confusion. Yeah, I remember that one. Unfortunately, a lot of these are not particularly Not particularly great to look at, so I think I'll leave that from now. All right, time to get that keyboard ASMR working. Yeah, of course there is. But I can't program that, so. Welcome to Keyboard ASMR. The fuck? Oh. Oh shit. I went too far. Oh. I was about to do it again. But I caught myself this time. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about the script working with Flip Robit. I just have tried it with Batch and it didn't work at all. So anyway, if you want me to send you the extracted stuff from the other graphic that I'm going to process, you can test it out with that if you want. Use that as the basis for your script. Those do need to be saved without flip row bit too as well, so you can test that out. Oh wait, I fucked up again. No, not that much though. This is why I need that energetic background music that will get me copyright struck if I bother trying to play it for you guys. So that I can keep my fingers moving here. Okay. In that case, I'll just re-extract the one that I'm doing now, since what I sent you was not the same thing that I'm working on. One thing that's weird about these graphics is they basically sort the frames into animation sets. So you've got the entire walking animation in like a very easy to remember manner. But then if there's an attack animation or an idle animation, those are separate blocks, if you will. So like what I'm processing now is the attack animation, but before I was processing the animation for walking. And then there's like an idle animation here, which is what this is. So I don't think it's worth trying to figure out how to set that up. But what I would do is just... I would simply work on like just making it so that it works for an arbitrary number of in a single animation organized the same way. And then all we would have to do is I would just separate the folders for the walking, attack, and idle animations, and then batch process those with the script. So that's probably all that you would need to do in that situation, I think. But that's the only thing that comes to my mind as like something to consider. Oh, wait. This graphic is a little bit weird visually, but I think it'll be a nice improvement over the nonsense that is the Hydralisk recolor. The last set is here, man. Kind of a big one, to be honest. Might be as many frames as the walk animation, or at least in the neighborhood. The fuck? Yeah, that's fine, because then, like I said, I can separate it out into different folders. I'll be able to process the shadow graphics that come with these as well, and if they're any good, we can use them, but I wasn't gonna bother processing those in the same way. We're looking at almost 450 frames, so... Which one is this a part of here? It's part of, like, the 414 side of things. Oh, 347. That's what it was? Finally found a graphic where I have 333 as a frame file name, and I am quite pleased about that. I did just realize, though, that I'm going to need to make a borrow animation for this guy. Wait, what? Oh, I know what happened. I made too many copies or whatever. There's a couple of things that these things have that I need to edit after the fact. Oh, this one doesn't seem to have it, but there's sometimes a blue outline that I try to fix. But yeah, the green pixels are like some artifact from extraction, I think. "26 frame sets, by the way." Seems like they don't have too many tones of team color, unfortunately. Oh. Oh. It's one of these moments where I realize that all of the copying and pasting I did was with fucked source files. Well, it's a good thing that you're going to use this to proof your own script so that that doesn't have to happen anymore, because I am not going to do that again. All right, so do you just need to have this? Is this file good enough? The BMP file? As like a finished product, or do you want the I guess you would prefer to have the individual assets, right? Like the individual frames or whatever. Pretty insane that I memorized that. Shouldn't have happened. All right, there you go. You've got it all. All right, that'll conclude the work today. I'll get some more work done on some graphics later on. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you today. So trying to see if I can fix the lighting of my face with Notepad. Looks like it works, sort of. Anyway, that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you. Tomorrow we'll be doing... Not sure if it'll be a morning stream, probably. Yeah, I think it probably will be. Morning or mid-afternoon stream or something. It won't be as late as today, for sure. So stay tuned for that. We'll get some more work done on the various graphics that we need to get done. And I'll do a burrow animation and a birth animation for the basilisk once its graphic itself is processed. So maybe that'll be tomorrow. Depends on when DF script gets finished. But that being said, other than that, I'll just be trying to get some other stuff done for for visuals, for visual fidelity. Plug in the new Cascathalor graphic as well. I'm very excited to do that. Glad that I didn't do the birth animation for the Cascathalor today after all. So yeah, that's what I got for you today. That's it. Stay tuned for more content, and I'll catch you guys next time.